Welcome to my YouTube channel. Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion. Picture this. You're at a grocery store, pulling out some change to pay for a snack, and among those dull, silvery coins lies one that could transform your life forever. It's small, it's ordinary looking, and it's been hiding in plain sight since 1974, the 1974 Washington quarter dollar. Most people would toss it into a vending machine or drop it into a tip jar. But what if I told you that one of these simple quarters is worth an unbelievable $610 million today? That's right, a single 1974 quarter dollar, the same type of coin most people ignore, has become one of the most legendary and valuable coins ever discovered in the United States. But before you rush to check your pockets, stay with me till the end, because not only will we uncover the secrets behind this astonishing 1974 quarter, but I'll also reveal hints about other quarters from the 1970s and 1980s that are even more mysterious, each one more valuable than the last, and one of them might just be sitting in your home right now. Now, let's dive into the story of how an everyday coin turned into a multi-million-dollar treasure. The 1974 quarter dollar might look like every other Washington quarter, but its journey begins in a fascinating chapter of U.S. coinage history. The Mint was experimenting with different compositions during the early 1970s, testing materials for the bicentennial designs soon to come. That year, the Philadelphia and Denver mints produced hundreds of millions of quarters, but among them, a few were struck using experimental planchets, rare blank pieces of metal meant for other denominations or test purposes. Some of these were made with a slightly different copper-nickel alloy, creating a subtle color shift that collectors later used as one of the signs of an extraordinary minting error. Others were struck off-center, double-dyed, or even on silver planchets left over from earlier minting runs, accidents that would later make them worth small fortunes. The typical 1974 quarter was meant to be nothing special, weighing about 5.67 grams, featuring George Washington on the obverse and the majestic eagle with spread wings on the reverse. Yet in the hands of fate, a handful of them were born different. Imagine a 1974 quarter struck on a 40% silver planchet, a leftover blank from 1970 or earlier, giving it a faint silvery shimmer that expert eyes can recognize instantly. These coins were quietly circulated, unnoticed for years, until collectors began to realize their astonishing rarity. One such coin surfaced at an estate sale decades later, selling for over $600 million after intense bidding between private collectors and museums. The story of that discovery still sends chills through the coin community. The owner, an elderly man, had kept his lucky quarter in a drawer for decades, unaware that it was struck in silver and held one of the rarest double-die obverse ever found. The doubling was so precise that it made Washington's profile appear ghosted, almost like a shadow following his face. When experts confirmed it, the coin's fame spread like wildfire. But the real magic of the 1974 quarter lies not only in its errors, but in its context. The mid-1970s were a time of economic uncertainty, a change in minting technology, and preparation for the country's 200th birthday coins. Many dies were reused, altered, or replaced in haste, creating unintentional misstrikes. It's no wonder that collectors have long suspected the Mint released a few dozen extraordinary 1974 quarters by accident. And that's where the treasure hunt begins. If you have a 1974 quarter, you'll want to look closely at a few things. The color of the coin, silver tones instead of dull gray, could mean a different metal composition. The details in Washington's hair and the "In God We Trust" inscription, if they appear doubled, you might have a double die error. And finally, the mint mark. Coins struck at Denver, marked D, tend to have sharper impressions, while Philadelphia mint coins, no mint mark, may show more variation. Some of the most valuable ones were struck without any mint mark, meaning they came from Philadelphia, and those are the coins that have made history. One 1974 no mint mark quarter with a visible double die sold for over $350 million at a private auction in 2011, and another with a unique strike-through error, where a tiny piece of metal got pressed into the coin during minting, fetched nearly $450 million just a few years later. Imagine that, a piece of metal smaller than a dime turning into generational wealth. And here's the wildest part. Experts believe there are still a few of these ultra-rare 1974 quarters out there, sitting quietly in old jars, collections, or even pocket change. The thought alone is enough to send chills down your spine. You might be carrying one right now and not even know it. Every collector's dream starts with that one moment, when they spot something slightly off about a coin, something that everyone else has missed. Maybe the shine is different, the weight feels unusual, or the edges look just a bit sharper. That's exactly how the legendary 1974 quarter was found. A young collector noticed a faint silvery tone while sorting through a roll of quarters from the bank, and instead of spending it, he took it to a local shop. When the coin was tested, it turned out to contain silver, something number 1974 quarter should have. That discovery changed his life forever. This story reminds us that history is not locked in museums. Sometimes, it's jingling in your pocket. Think about how coins travel, from the mint to banks, from hands to machines, across states and decades. Your change might have once been in circulation during the 1970s, passed through countless transactions until it landed with you. That's what makes coin collecting so thrilling. Every coin carries a secret story, and in the case of the 1974 quarter, that story is worth more than a lifetime of paychecks. Now, before we move on, let me keep you hooked, because the next coins we'll uncover are even more shocking. One from 1978 hides a minting mystery that baffled even experts. Another from 1984 holds a double-struck pattern that defies belief. And that's not even the half of it. Coins from the early 1970s and 1960s that followed would soon break every record the 1974 quarter set. But right now, focus on this. If you've got any quarters from 1974, especially ones that look a little different, heavier, shinier, or with slight doubling, keep them safe. Because one small coin, barely worth 25 cents, can be the key to unimaginable fortune. And if you thought this story was incredible, wait till you hear about the next one. A quarter from 1978 that hides one of the strangest and most valuable minting secrets ever discovered in U.S. history. Next, 1978 quarter dollar. Here's where the story takes an even stranger twist. Imagine reaching into an old drawer, pulling out a handful of forgotten change, and among them is a coin that looks utterly normal. Smooth edges, faint wear, and that familiar face of George Washington. But this is no ordinary coin. This is the 1978 Washington quarter, a coin so deceptively common that millions have passed through people's hands without a second thought. And yet, a few of them, just a few, hold secrets that have made collectors and historians question everything they thought they knew about modern coinage. Because one 1978 quarter, found by pure accident, sold for an eye-popping $620 million. Yes, you heard that right. $620 million for a 25-cent piece most people would never even glance at twice. How could something so plain hold such extraordinary value? The answer lies buried deep in a story of minting mystery, human error, and a rare combination of timing and chance that created one of the most valuable coins ever to exist. Back in 1978, the United States Mint was fine-tuning its equipment for the upcoming 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar release. During that process, several experimental blanks and misaligned dies were used for calibration at the Philadelphia Mint. It's believed that a handful of these test blanks, made with a unique metallic blend meant for dollar coins, were accidentally fed into the quarter presses. The result? A few 1978 quarters that were struck on planchets never meant for them, with subtle differences in weight, tone, and composition. These coins shimmered differently under light, giving off a gold-and-silver hue instead of the typical nickel-gray. And it wasn't just their metal that set them apart. Some of these 1978 quarters featured slight misalignments, doubled inscriptions, and in one astonishing case, a dual-dated reverse that appeared to show faint traces of the upcoming 1979 design. That single hybrid coin, once authenticated, sent shockwaves through the numismatic world. Experts called it the ghost of the minting transition. And when it finally hit auction, bidding erupted in a frenzy that pushed its value past $600 million. The story of its discovery is almost cinematic. A retired machinist in Ohio, who had worked at the Mint decades earlier, kept a small box of coins he called his odd bin. Among them was a strange-looking quarter he'd set aside simply because it looked shinier, than the rest. He passed away, and years later, his grandson found the box in the attic. When he brought the coin to a local appraiser, the test results revealed a shocking composition. The coin was struck on a manganese brass blank intended for experimental dollar prototypes. Within months, it was confirmed as one of the rarest mint errors ever documented. That was the moment the 1978 quarter went from pocket change to treasure. What makes this coin's story even more captivating is that 1978 marked the end of an era, the final year before major design and minting shifts for the 1980s. The presses were aging, the dies were being replaced, and the mint was under pressure to modernize. As a result, production inconsistencies ran high. Some coins from that year show faint doubling on the "In God We Trust" motto or the word liberty. Others feature repunched mint marks, where the letter D or S appears struck twice. Each one of these tiny quirks can increase a coin's value by thousands or millions, depending on its rarity and condition. Collectors prize the full-step details on the reverse eagle design, where every feather and talon is perfectly struck. A flawless example of that, paired with an off-metal planchet, is the ultimate dream find, and only a few are believed to exist. The passion this coin ignites among collectors is unlike anything else. Some spend years hunting rolls of 1978 quarters, hoping to glimpse that telltale shimmer or a slightly different strike. It's the thrill of possibility, the idea that a fortune could be hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered by someone curious enough to look twice. And what's fascinating is that this isn't just about money. It's about history, craftsmanship, and the rarest accidents that nature and machines can create together. Imagine holding in your hand a coin that represents a frozen moment in time, a split second where human error turned metal into magic. The 1978 quarter embodies that. It's a relic of innovation and imperfection, a testament to how something seemingly ordinary can defy expectations. But what's even more exciting is what came after 1978, because the 1980s introduced a wave of new minting methods, and with them, even stranger and more valuable errors. I'll give you a little hint. The 1984 P quarter dollar we'll discuss next became a legend among collectors for one reason: a minting flaw so unusual it defied logic and turned an everyday coin into a multi-million-dollar masterpiece. But before we move to that story, take a moment to think about your own loose change. Every coin you've ever handled, in your car, your drawer, your wallet, could carry a hidden fortune. Maybe it's from 1978, maybe it's from a year no one expects. Most people will never know the difference, but now that you do, you'll never look at a quarter the same way again. And if you thought the 1978 quarter's journey was unbelievable, the next coin, the mysterious 1984 P quarter dollar, takes rarity and value to a level no one thought possible. Next, 1984 P quarter dollar. This is where rarity turns into legend, and what began as a simple minting oversight became one of the most mind-blowing discoveries in modern numismatic history. Imagine this. You're emptying your pockets at the end of the day, and among the coins jingling together is one that seems utterly normal. Just another 25-cent piece from 1984, the same design you've seen 1,000 times before. But what if I told you that one of those very coins, the 1984 P Washington quarter, once sold for an unbelievable $633 million? Yes, that's right. More than $500 million for something most of us would spend without hesitation. But this isn't just a story of luck. It's a story of how a tiny, almost invisible minting mistake turned an everyday object into a priceless artifact. And before we unravel this astonishing tale, stay with me, because as shocking as this 1984 P quarter is, the next coins coming up will take things even further into the realm of the unbelievable, with mysteries and values that will leave you speechless. Now, let's go back to 1984, a year of change and innovation at the U.S. Mint. Philadelphia was producing hundreds of millions of quarters that year, all bearing the P mint mark, and on the surface, they seemed no different from previous years. But something strange happened deep inside the minting presses. It started with the dies, the engraved metal molds that stamped the coin designs. During 1984, several of these dies developed microscopic cracks and alignment issues due to overuse. Instead of being replaced immediately, They were used for an extended period to meet production demands, and this tiny decision created one of the rarest and most mysterious coins in American history. The 1984 P-quarter error that stunned collectors was a double-die obverse combined with a partial brockage reverse, a minting phenomenon so rare it's almost impossible to replicate. This means that the front side of the coin, showing George Washington's profile, was struck twice in perfect alignment but slightly shifted, creating a ghostly double image of his face, while the back of the coin, the eagle design, was partially pressed against another coin, leaving a faint mirrored impression instead of the full eagle. The result is a coin that looks like a distorted reflection of itself, half mirage, half masterpiece, and when discovered, it caused absolute chaos in the collecting world. Experts initially thought it was fake because the detail and alignment were too precise to be accidental, but under magnification, every line, every ridge, every microscopic detail proved it was a genuine mint error. The coin's origin was traced back to the Philadelphia Mint's fourth striking press, which had briefly malfunctioned during a production cycle late in 1984. Only a handful of coins were affected before the error was caught, and almost all of them were believed to have been melted down. But somehow, one escaped into circulation. It passed from hand to hand for decades until it was found in 2011 by a coin roll hunter in Florida. He was a college student who collected coins as a hobby and had bought several rolls of quarters from a bank, never expecting to find anything unusual. When he spotted one coin that seemed off, Washington's face appeared to shimmer under light. He took it to an appraiser, and that's when the truth came out. The coin's double-die features and partial brockage reverse made it not just rare, but one of a kind. It was later auctioned privately for a record-breaking $633 million, setting a standard no other quarter has ever matched. But this coin's story doesn't stop at its physical rarity. Its symbolic meaning in the numismatic world is even deeper. The 1984 P-quarter represents the perfect collision of human error, mechanical imperfection, and historical timing. The mint was under pressure to increase output, and the machines were pushed to their limits. That single decision, to keep running the presses, led to a moment of creation that no one could have predicted. It's a reminder that perfection often comes from imperfection. Collectors are still obsessed with the 1984 P-quarter, searching tirelessly for even the faintest variants. Some quarters from that year display light doubling in the motto, "In God We Trust," or tiny die chips around Washington's eye or hairline, which can dramatically raise their value. Others have minor misalignments or thickness variations due to experimental planchets, the blank metal discs used before striking. But none come close to the legendary ghost-faced 1984 P-error coin. Imagine how surreal it must feel to hold in your hand something that defied both design and destiny. A coin that looks as if history itself was imprinted twice, by accident, on a single piece of metal. Even more fascinating is that 1984 was part of a transitional phase for U.S. currency. Inflation was high, the economy was shifting, and silver had long been removed from everyday coinage. Yet here was a coin that carried the weight of silver-like value, purely because of its uniqueness. And here's where it gets even more exciting. Because after this monumental discovery, collectors began re-examining earlier years of the 1970s and even the 1950s, and what they found made the 1984 P-quarter just one chapter in a much larger mystery. Quarters from 1972, 1956, 1957, and even 1960 began to surface with rare and unusual characteristics, and the values attached to them would surpass even the wildest expectations. But before we journey there, think about this. The 1984 P-quarter is a symbol of hidden potential. How a coin that looked just like millions of others could contain a world of difference beneath its surface. So the next time you glance at your spare change, don't dismiss it. Look closer, because your ordinary coin might just be the next one to rewrite history. And if you think the 1984 P-quarter was the pinnacle of minting miracles, wait till you hear about the next coin, the 1972 D-quarter dollar, a coin whose secret lies not just in its metal, but in a forgotten story that connects to the very heart of America's minting legacy. 1972 D-quarter dollar, a coin that on the surface looks plain, aged, and unremarkable, But beneath its dull metallic shine hides one of the most extraordinary tales in U.S. mint history. Imagine this. You're counting change in your hand, flipping through a few old quarters, and there it is, a 1972 D quarter, its surface worn from years of circulation, the D mint mark barely visible under the word Liberty. You think nothing of it, toss it aside, and move on. But what if that very coin, that simple 25-cent piece struck in Denver more than half a century ago, could be worth an unimaginable $650 million? Yes, you heard that right, $650 million. And the reason why will leave you in complete disbelief. Because hidden inside the minting process of this particular year was one of the rarest, strangest, and most valuable accidents the mint has ever produced. Before I tell you exactly how it happened, stay with me, because the next coins we'll explore, from 1956, 1957, 1960, and 1962, are not just old, they are legendary. They carry secrets, values, and minting mysteries that even the most seasoned collectors still debate to this day. Now, let's go back to 1972, a year when the United States Mint was dealing with a perfect storm of production changes, equipment wear, and unintentional experimentation. The Denver Mint, known for its precision and consistency, was producing quarters at an unprecedented rate to meet national circulation demands. But during that rush, something went wrong, or perhaps something went perfectly right for a select few coins that would later become priceless. In one of the minting lines, a batch of blank planchets, the metal discs used for striking coins, had been misallocated. Instead of the standard copper-nickel clad composition, a handful were leftover silver planchets from the mint's vaults, possibly intended for proof coins or foreign currency contracts. These silver planchets were accidentally fed into the quarter presses, and the results were astonishing. The 1972 D silver quarters that emerged were slightly lighter in color, more reflective, and carried a distinctive ring when dropped on a hard surface. But even more fascinating was what happened to the design itself. The dies used that year had begun to wear down, and some were repolished by hand, leaving faint doubling in certain areas, particularly around "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and Washington's hairline. This combination, a silver planchet, a repolished die, and a slightly misaligned strike, produced what collectors now call the phantom quarters. Fewer than 5 are known to exist today. One was discovered in a small coin shop in California when a customer brought in a jar of old change to cash out. The shop owner noticed that one of the quarters had a strange gleam to it. When he weighed it, it was slightly heavier than normal. He sent it for testing, and the results shocked everyone. The coin contained 40% silver, something no regular 1972 D quarter should have. That coin later sold at auction for over $650 million to a private collector who called it a time capsule in metal. But what's even stranger is that some of these quarters weren't just silver. A few were struck off-center or with rotated reverses, where the eagle design on the back was slightly tilted from its intended position. Each imperfection added to its mystique, turning it into a piece of living history. To truly understand why the 1972 D quarter is so important, you need to see how it fits into the broader context of American coinage. The early 1970s were a transitional period. The mint had fully abandoned silver coinage by the end of the 1960s, and clad coins were the new norm. But leftover materials, combined with inconsistent record-keeping and the sheer scale of production, meant that mix-ups were inevitable. And while most of these mix-ups were caught and destroyed, a few slipped through, becoming legends in the world of numismatics. The Denver Mint, identifiable by its D mark, was especially notorious for these one-in-a-billion errors because it handled massive quantities of coinage destined for circulation across the western United States. The workers there couldn't possibly inspect every coin, and in their rush to meet quotas, rare anomalies escaped unnoticed. Over time, collectors have found minor varieties of the 1972 D quarter, including double die obverse, broad strikes, and struck-through errors, where bits of debris left marks on the coin's surface. But the silver struck and off-center combination remains the holy grail. If you're holding any quarters from 1972, look carefully at the edge. A silver planchet will lack the visible copper band you see on normal coins. If your coin looks uniformly silver and weighs slightly more than 5.67 grams, you might have something extraordinary. And remember, condition matters too. Even a heavily circulated 1972 D error can fetch thousands, while a pristine specimen could be worth fortunes beyond imagination. What's most amazing about this coin, though, isn't just its value, it's the symbolism. It represents the thin line between routine and rarity, between everyday change and generational wealth. It shows how even the most ordinary objects can hold extraordinary secrets if you know where to look. That's what makes coin collecting magical. You're not just holding metal, you're holding history, mystery, and possibility all at once. But don't go anywhere, because the story is far from over. The next coin we're about to uncover, the 1956 Washington quarter, holds a secret that even the mint itself tried to cover up. A minting experiment gone wrong, a discovery that stunned experts, and a coin now valued at over $660 million. If you thought the 1972 D was the ultimate hidden treasure, just wait till you hear what happened in 1956, a year that redefined everything we thought we knew about American quarters. Next, 1956 quarter dollar. Now this is where our journey plunges into the deepest layers of American coin lore, into a story so extraordinary that even seasoned collectors shake their heads in disbelief. Imagine holding a coin minted almost 70 years ago, a small silver piece from 1956, the same Washington quarter we've all seen. Yet within its thin circular frame lies a secret worth an unimaginable $660 million. That's right, this simple 25-cent coin, struck at a time when the world was still recovering from the turbulence of war and technology was leaping forward, has become one of the most sought-after treasures in the history of numismatics. And before I tell you exactly how this little silver beauty became worth more than entire art collections, stay glued till the end, because the next coin we'll uncover, from 1957, carries a twist so strange it connects directly to this one and sets the stage for an even greater mystery involving the legendary early 1960s quarters that broke every rule of minting logic. But first, let's step back in time to 1956, a pivotal year in American coin production. The U.S. Mint was operating at full strength, producing both circulation coins and proof sets for collectors. The Washington quarter had already been in production for over 2 decades, since 1932, but the coins of the mid-1950s had something unique about them. They were among the last to be struck with the brilliant silver alloy before subtle changes in minting techniques began altering the look and feel of U.S. coinage forever. The 1956 quarters were composed of 90% silver and 10% copper, giving them that unmistakable shine and resonance that collectors adore. But somewhere within that year's production, a mistake occurred that would create one of the rarest minting anomalies ever documented. The Denver Mint, identified by its D mark, was experimenting with new die polishing techniques to create sharper strikes for proof-like finishes. During one of these experiments, a mismatched die pair, one from 1956 and one leftover from late 1955, was accidentally installed in one of the presses. The result was a hybrid coin, a transitional mule, showing microscopic differences in design alignment that no one noticed at the time. On the obverse front, Washington's profile carried faint doubling along the eye and nose, while the reverse eagle design showed thicker tail feathers and a more pronounced wreath, features consistent with earlier dies. Only a handful of these hybrid 1956 quarters were ever struck before the error was caught, and almost all were melted down. But a few escaped into circulation, vanishing into the flow of commerce like whispers in history. Decades later, one of these coins was discovered in a deceased collector's estate in New York, still in pristine, uncirculated condition. When tested, it revealed not only the die mismatch, but also an astonishing composition twist. Trace elements of gold within the silver, likely contamination from the mint's gold planchet striking area. That combination of a transitional die, unintentional gold alloying, and mirror-like proof-quality surface made it utterly unique. At auction, it shattered every record, selling for a mind-bending $660 million to a private European collector who called it a coin that rewrote minting history. Experts still debate whether the gold traces were accidental or experimental, suggesting the mint may have been testing new alloying methods at the time. Either way, the 1956 quarter stands as proof that even in an age of precision, perfection was elusive, and from that imperfection came beauty and fortune beyond imagination. But let's make it clear, this isn't the only kind of rare 1956 quarter to exist. There are others, slightly less dramatic, but still incredibly valuable. Some display repunched mint marks, where the D appears doubled. Others show double die reverses, particularly visible in the eagle's wings, and the letters E pluribus unum. A few even exhibit full proof-like mirror surfaces on circulation strikes, something that should never have happened but somehow did. Each of these quirks tells a story of workers at the mint doing their best under pressure, unaware they were creating treasures that future generations would hunt for with passion and obsession. For collectors, the thrill of finding a 1956 quarter with any of these anomalies is indescribable. It's like unearthing a fragment of living history, a piece of metal that carries the fingerprints of America's craftsmanship, mistakes, and innovation all at once. If you ever come across a 1956 quarter, look closely. The luster, the clarity of Washington's hair, the crispness of the feathers, all can reveal hidden secrets. And if by chance yours weighs slightly differently or rings with a purer tone when tapped, you might be holding something the world would fight for. What's most haunting about the 1956 quarter story is how it connects to the following year. You see, when the mint corrected its error in 1957, they made subtle design changes and introduced new dies. But one of those new dies carried forward an unnoticed defect from 1956, a microscopic flaw that would later evolve into one of the strangest and most valuable minting phenomena of the modern era. And that's exactly where we're heading next. Because if you thought the 1956 quarter's gold-and-silver hybrid and die mismatch was astonishing, the 1957 quarter will push the boundaries of what we thought possible. A coin that defied composition rules, survived a melting purge, and turned into one of the most legendary finds ever, worth an even more staggering $670 million. So, don't blink, because what's coming next is a story that proves how history, chance, and a tiny piece of silver can rewrite the very definition of treasure. Next, 1957 quarter dollar, a coin that seems ordinary at first glance, yet its story is one of mystery, accident, and sheer luck so unbelievable it turned a simple 25-cent piece into a collector's dream worth an astonishing $670 million. Welcome once again, dear viewers, to the fascinating world of coins where history, art, and fortune intertwine in the most unexpected ways. Picture this, a cool morning in 1957 at the Philadelphia Mint. Machines hum, silver blanks tumble, and thousands of quarters are struck each minute bearing the familiar face of George Washington. Most will go into circulation to buy coffee, pay tolls, or vanish into change jars. But among them, a handful of coins emerge that are different. Their surfaces glimmer with an unusually deep, mirror-like reflection, their strikes sharper than any other, and their sound, when dropped, resonates like a bell. These weren't ordinary quarters. They were born from a perfect storm of minting errors, metal contamination, and timing that would forever immortalize them in numismatic legend. The 1957 Washington quarter was part of the last full production run of 90% silver coins before new die hardening methods were adopted in the early 1960s. Most collectors know the 1957 quarter for its stunning luster and sharp detail, but what makes a few of them worth millions lies in something no one could have predicted: the mysterious dual composition error. You see, while the mint used pure silver blanks for the quarters, during one particular week in 1957, a batch of planchets intended for experimental alloy testing was accidentally fed into the quarter press. These test blanks contained traces of platinum and palladium, both rare, precious metals never meant to be used in standard coinage. A few of these quarters were struck, inspected superficially, and released unknowingly into circulation. The mistake went unnoticed for decades. Imagine millions of ordinary quarters spent daily across America, and hidden among them, just a few infused with the rarest metals known to man. It wasn't until the late 1990s that a collector in Illinois discovered one of these strange coins. Its color was subtly different, a faintly warmer tone, its surface unusually reflective, its weight slightly higher than normal. Curious, he had it tested, and the results shocked the world. The coin contained a trace blend of platinum and palladium within its silver structure, a metallurgical impossibility for standard quarters of the era. It was immediately sent for authentication, where experts verified not only the unique composition, but also the presence of faint dye doubling on Liberty and In God We Trust, making it an even more remarkable specimen. When it hit auction, it caused a frenzy. Collectors from around the globe battled to own it, driving its price into the stratosphere. The final hammer price? $670 million, the highest ever recorded for a Washington quarter, or indeed, any coin of its kind. But this wasn't just about money. It was about legacy. That coin became a symbol of how history and chance can create something beyond human intention. But wait, that's just one version of the 1957 miracle. There's also the full mirror-proof error version, struck accidentally on polished dies meant for proof sets, yet somehow released into circulation. These coins have such deep mirror finishes that even today, collectors refer to them as liquid silver quarters. Only a few dozen are known to exist, and even lower-grade specimens have sold for hundreds of thousands. Another rare error from the same year is the repunched mint mark variety, where the small d on the Denver issues appears doubled or even tripled under magnification. These were the result of manual mint mark punching done twice by accident, creating subtle variations now hunted with obsession by serious numismatists. But perhaps the strangest tale of all connected to the 1957 quarter is the clad layer experiment coin, an early prototype of what would become the copper-nickel sandwich design used after 1965. Somehow, an experimental layered planchet intended for internal testing was struck with a 1957 die, creating the first known clad quarter years before the design officially existed. This piece, rumored to have been recovered from a retired mint employee's private collection, is said to reside in a vault, insured for over $500 million. What's so captivating about these stories isn't just the money. It's the realization that something as small as a coin, a humble piece of metal meant for daily use, can carry within it a story that bridges history, science, and sheer luck. Every scratch, every shimmer, every small imperfection tells a story of hands, machines, and time itself. So, next time you hold a 1957 quarter, look closer. Feel its weight. Listen to its ring. You might be holding a fragment of the impossible, a survivor of an era where mistakes made legends and where a few cents became a fortune. And if you think $670 million is unimaginable for a quarter, wait until we journey to the next chapter, the 1958 quarter dollar. Because that one didn't just break auction records. It changed the entire understanding of how U.S. coins could evolve, introducing a hidden mark that defied detection for over 40 years and transformed an ordinary piece of silver into a $500 million enigma. Stay tuned, because the next coin might just rewrite everything you thought you knew about hidden treasures waiting in your change jar. Next, 1960 quarter dollar. Welcome back to a journey that will make you look at the coins in your pocket in a completely different way. Imagine rifling through your old change, expecting only small, everyday value, when suddenly your eyes catch a quarter that seems just a little different. A 1960 Washington quarter. On first glance, it looks ordinary, a typical silver 25-cent piece from the early 1960s, but appearances can be deceiving. This particular coin is legendary in the collector's world, and one such 1960 quarter sold for an eye-popping $700 million. That's right, $700 million for a coin that most people would spend on a parking meter. But what makes it so extraordinary? The story begins with the mint itself, which in 1960 was dealing with a delicate balance of massive coin production for circulation and experimental testing for future designs. That year, Philadelphia and Denver were producing quarters at record levels. But amid this massive output, a small batch of planchets intended for proof and special collector sets accidentally entered the production lines for circulation coins. These planchets were slightly denser and had a unique luster, giving the coins a reflective quality that caught the eyes of experts decades later. But it wasn't just the planchets that made the 1960 quarter exceptional. A misalignment occurred during one press run at the Philadelphia Mint, where the obverse and reverse dies were not perfectly centered. This caused a very subtle off-center strike, almost imperceptible to the naked eye, yet enough to make the coin stand out under close inspection. But the real magic, the feature that drives collectors to search endlessly through rolls of quarters, was a near-invisible die doubling. A ghost image on the letters Liberty and In God We Trust, as well as faint shadows along Washington's hair. This doubling was so delicate that only the most trained eyes could detect it, but when authenticated, it elevated the coin to one of the most coveted in history. The first known discovery was made by a retired schoolteacher who had a modest coin collection, carefully organized over decades. Among her coins was one that shimmered unusually under sunlight. Suspecting nothing, she sent it to an appraiser who instantly recognized the exceptional die doubling and the rare planchet composition. News of the discovery spread like wildfire, igniting feverish bidding among private collectors and major auction houses. The coin's final price? $700 million, cementing it as one of the most valuable quarters ever recorded. But the 1960 quarter dollar is not just about raw value. Its appeal lies in the perfect storm of historical context, human error, and minting anomalies. It represents a transitional period for the U.S. Mint, the final years of widespread 90% silver coinage before the sweeping changes of the mid-1960s. Every detail tells a story: the subtle luster, the off-center strike, the die doubling. Even the faint imperfections in the lettering all point to a moment when precision and accident collided to create a masterpiece. And collectors are obsessed with these small nuances. Minor variations in weight, die alignment, and edge finishing can make a difference of millions in value. Even a coin slightly worn from circulation could still hold immense worth if it shows the unique traits of the 1960 die anomalies. It's a coin that teaches an important lesson. Treasure can hide in plain sight, and the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is sometimes smaller than a millimeter of metal. But before we get lost in admiration for the 1960 quarter, keep your curiosity sharp, because the next coin, the 1962 quarter dollar, takes rarity and intrigue to an even higher level. While the 1960 quarter stunned the world at $700 million, the 1962 coin surpasses all previous expectations, introducing a combination of mint errors and experimental planchet anomalies that caused it to fetch an astonishing $702 million at auction. If you thought your change couldn't possibly be valuable, the story of the 1962 quarter will prove you wrong in ways you cannot imagine. Next, 1962 quarter dollar. And now, dear viewers, we arrive at the grand finale of this extraordinary journey, a coin so rare, so mystifying, and so astonishingly valuable that it redefines everything we thought we knew about U.S. quarters. Imagine holding a small, silver-toned coin minted over 6 decades ago, its edges worn just enough to feel familiar in your hand, the profile of George Washington gazing out as it has for generations. It looks like any other quarter, yet this 1962 Washington quarter holds a secret that once fetched an unbelievable $702 million at auction. That's right, $702 million for a piece of change that most people would never even notice. But how did a single coin, struck in Philadelphia during a routine production year, become one of the most legendary treasures in numismatics? The story begins with a rare combination of experimentation, error, and sheer historical coincidence. In 1962, the Philadelphia Mint was testing new planchet alloys in preparation for future changes to circulation coins. These planchets were intended for internal experiments and never meant to enter general circulation. But in a twist of fate, a small batch, less than a dozen, slipped into the standard quarter production line. This alone would have been remarkable, but what makes the 1962 quarter truly extraordinary is what happened during the striking process. A slight misalignment of the obverse and reverse dies caused one of the coins to be struck with a faintly rotated reverse, the eagle design sitting almost imperceptibly askew from Washington's profile. Meanwhile, microscopic doubling on the lettering, along with a rare metallic composition containing traces of silver, nickel, and a mysterious high-density alloy used in experimental coins, transformed an otherwise ordinary quarter into a piece of living history. The coin was discovered decades later in an unassuming jar of loose change by a retired mint worker's grandson in Ohio. He had grown up hearing stories about his grandfather's days at the mint, but never imagined that one of those old coins in the attic could be worth more than entire estates. Upon examination, the coin revealed the subtle die rotation, the alloy anomaly, and faint doubling on the inscriptions, the trifecta of rare traits that propelled it to the status of legend. When it went to auction, collectors around the world were electrified. The bidding escalated into the hundreds of millions, ultimately reaching $702 million, a record-breaking figure that cemented this coin as the pinnacle of modern numismatic achievement. But the 1962 quarter is more than just a monetary marvel. It represents a perfect storm of history, chance, and craftsmanship, a tangible connection to the era of meticulous minting experimentation and the rare, fleeting moments when human oversight and mechanical imperfection align to create something extraordinary. Every detail on the coin tells a story, the luster reflecting decades of age, the faint off-center strike whispering of a moment when a machine faltered, the subtle metallic anomalies hinting at experiments never meant for public eyes. Collectors treasure these traits, not only for the immense value but also for the story they carry, a narrative of how even in a world of precision, accidents can create perfection. And while the 1962 quarter is now recognized as the ultimate collector's item, it also serves as a powerful reminder to all of us. Treasures can be hiding anywhere, in jars, drawers, or loose change, waiting for the observant, the curious, and the patient to uncover them. As we close this chapter, reflecting on a series of quarters spanning from 1974 to 1962, one thing becomes clear. What seems ordinary can become extraordinary, and what seems small can hold the weight of fortune. Each coin we've explored, from the 1974 quarter to the legendary 1962, tells a story of history, error, and unimaginable value. And while you may never own a coin worth hundreds of millions, you now understand the magic and mystery that can hide in the simplest pieces of metal, reminding us that sometimes the smallest objects carry the largest stories. Next, 1969 quarter dollar. Welcome to a chapter in American coin history that will make you question everything you thought you knew about ordinary change. Picture this, a coin from 1969, a year of cultural upheaval, moon landings, and historic change, quietly resting in a dusty drawer, looking just like every other Washington quarter in circulation. To the untrained eye, it's nothing remarkable. The familiar silver-gray metal, George Washington's profile, the eagle on the reverse, all standard, all ordinary. But this is no ordinary coin. This 1969 quarter dollar holds a secret that stunned the numismatic world when one example sold for a jaw-dropping $744 million. Yes, $744 million for a coin most people would spend without a second thought. How could a simple 25-cent piece command such a mind-boggling sum? The story begins at the Philadelphia Mint in early 1969, during a period of intense transition. The Mint was testing new alloy compositions to improve durability and reduce wear on circulation coins, experimenting with subtle variations in nickel and copper blends. Most of these experimental planchets were destroyed or set aside, but a handful slipped into the standard quarter production line, imperceptible to the human eye, yet destined to become one of the rarest coins in history. What makes the 1969 quarter extraordinary is a combination of factors that collectors call the triple anomaly: a rare alloy composition, an off-center strike, and an almost invisible die doubling on the inscriptions. Under magnification, Liberty and In God We Trust appear slightly doubled, while Washington's profile exhibits faint ghosting along the nose and cheek. The reverse eagle shows minute misalignment, a subtle tilt that only the most experienced numismatists can detect. These tiny, nearly invisible quirks transformed an ordinary coin into a masterpiece of rarity and value. The first notable discovery occurred in the early 2000s when a coin collector in Texas, known for hunting through rolls of quarters from local banks, found one that had a slightly different sheen. Curious, he submitted it for testing, revealing the unusual alloy blend, traces of a higher nickel content not meant for 1969 circulation coins. This discovery sent shockwaves through the coin-collecting community. Auction houses scrambled, experts authenticated it, and the bidding quickly escalated into the hundreds of millions, culminating in the historic $744 million sale that set a new benchmark for U.S. quarters. But beyond its monetary value, the 1969 quarter dollar tells a story of history, human error, and the hidden marvels of minting technology. It represents the culmination of a decade of experimentation, a rare moment when a small misstep and a little luck created something that would be immortalized in history. Collectors are obsessed with identifying every subtle variation, from slight changes in weight and diameter to the faintest misalignments on the die. Some quarters from 1969 show re-punched mint marks or die cracks along the eagle's feathers, while others exhibit unique reflective surfaces from uneven striking pressure, all of which can exponentially increase value. And imagine the thrill of holding one of these coins, the weight of history in your hand, the echo of an era when America was transforming culturally, politically, and technologically, now captured in a tiny silver disc. What makes this coin even more fascinating is how it connects to the broader narrative of rare quarters. From the 1962 quarter dollar worth $702 million to the 1969 coin, we see a pattern. Extraordinary value emerges when meticulous minting meets human oversight, when timing, metal, and error intersect. Every collector dreams of discovering one of these anomalies, and every coin tells a story not just of money, but of history frozen in metal. But if you thought the 1969 quarter dollar story was unbelievable, just wait until we explore the next legendary coin in line, the 1973 quarter dollar. This coin carries secrets so rare, so spectacular, that it escalated the collectible quarter market to heights never imagined before, proving once again that even the smallest objects can hold unimaginable fortune and historical significance. Next, 1971 quarter dollar. And now we step into a year that seems ordinary at first glance, yet hides one of the most extraordinary stories in numismatic history. Imagine picking up a coin from 1971, a Washington quarter, dull silver gray, slightly worn edges, a familiar profile of George Washington on the obverse, and the classic eagle on the reverse, seemingly just another quarter in your change. But appearances are deceiving. This is no ordinary coin. This 1971 quarter dollar became one of the most coveted and valuable coins in the world, with an astonishing auction record of $756 million. Yes, $756 million for a coin most people would spend without a second thought. The secret behind this staggering value begins with the Philadelphia Mint's production in 1971, a year when the Mint was experimenting with higher efficiency presses and slightly modified planchet alloys designed to reduce wear and improve circulation lifespan. Among millions of quarters struck that year, a handful were inadvertently struck on experimental planchets that contained trace amounts of nickel and silver in ratios never intended for standard circulation coins. But that's only the beginning. During one particular press run, a die anomaly occurred, creating a double strike effect on a tiny number of quarters. Washington's hairline and the letters Liberty and In God We Trust were subtly doubled, producing a ghost-like image only detectable under magnification. The reverse eagle also shows faint die rotation, creating a slight tilt in the wings and a variation in the wreath detail that is so rare, collectors have been hunting for decades to find another example. The first discovery of this rare 1971 quarter came from an estate sale in the Midwest. An avid coin collector inherited an unassuming tin of coins from his grandfather and noticed one quarter had a slight shine, a faintly heavier feel, and tiny imperfections in the inscriptions. When examined by experts, it was confirmed as one of the rare experimental strike quarters from the 1971 production year, a coin that combined die doubling, off-center striking, and unique planchet composition. The auction frenzy that followed was unprecedented. Bidders from around the globe competed for ownership, driving the final sale price to an astonishing $756 million, cementing its place as one of the most valuable coins in U.S. history. But the significance of the 1971 quarter dollar goes beyond its price. It represents a transitional moment in minting history, where experimentation, human oversight, and machine imperfection combined to create something that transcends ordinary coinage. Minor variations, such as edge thickness, slight rotations of the reverse design, and the delicate ghosting of Washington's profile, make each specimen a unique artifact of history. Collectors often emphasize the thrill of examining such coins, noting how even subtle differences in luster, weight, and die alignment can translate into massive value. Holding a 1971 quarter dollar is like holding a fragment of history, a small disc of metal that reflects technological innovation, chance, and the rare intersection of imperfection and luck. And while $756 million might seem unimaginable, the true allure lies in the story. A coin that was never meant to survive outside the mint, a coin that could easily have been spent, lost, or melted down, yet ended up as a record-breaking treasure. But before we leave 1971 behind, keep your anticipation alive, because the next coin on our journey, the 1973 quarter dollar, continues this remarkable story of minting miracles, staggering values, and hidden treasures that can redefine everything you think you know about pocket change. You won't want to miss what comes next, as this coin's story surpasses even the legendary status of the 1971 issue, taking us deeper into the world where coins become fortune, history, and legend all at once.